And just a note, oh, thank you so much for the record button. And just a quick note to everyone who's joined us this afternoon. Please put your questions in the chat. I think it's a chat, not the webinar. Yes, it's in the chat. Put your questions in a chat. We will get to them as we're having our conversations, but please feel free to ask any and all of your questions. So wonderful. Thank you all so much. Jacob, I would love to start with you to tell us a little bit more about the POV challenge and really specifically, why housing this year? Why was it this year's topic?
Yeah, so I'm happy to give a little bit of background. And by way of that, I should start by saying that the POV Challenge is hosted by Carolina Across 100 every year. So it's a Payne University initiative that's coordinated by the NC Impact Initiative where I work, and it's charged by the Chancellor's Office to really form partnerships in all 100 counties across North Carolina. So through Carolina Across 100, we build cross-sector collaborations, and then we apply that approach to address different challenges that were either created or exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And so far, we've partnered with 84 out of 100 counties on issues like youth disconnection from the workforce and mental health, and now our current programs on affordable housing. So that program is called Our State, Our Homes, and it's an 18-month program that aims to help communities across the state develop capacity and analyze challenges and implement strategies to address affordable housing and related issues. And that program kicked off back in January at the beginning of this year, and it includes 14 teams from across the state that represent 22 counties. So these teams come together over 18 months for webinars and in-person forums to learn from each other, as well as learn from experts at UNC and other community partners across the state. So this is the foundation for the POV Challenge, and it's also part of Carolina Engagement Week, which is a week of events that happens every year to celebrate UNC's partnerships with communities across the state. And the POV Challenge topic changes each year depending on our program. So this year it was all about housing, and we asked Carolina students to help us understand and elevate awareness around affordable housing needs and challenges in North Carolina. And the way they did this was using totally publicly available information like data or existing resources. And then they researched one of three prompts that we provided, and then they were able to get really creative in the different ways that they could share their findings and ideas. And to give you a little bit of perspective on student engagement with the POV challenge, this year we had 12 teams participate, and that totaled 37 students from Carolina across 24 different unique programs and majors. And 15 of these students were undergrads, and 22 of them were graduate or professional students. So at the end of the engagement week, we had a group of 35 campus and community partner judges for the competition, and we hosted a big reception where we displayed all of the projects. And the top two winners each got $500, but all of the submissions were incredibly valuable and wonderful, and have been used in the Our State, Our Homes program to engage with people across the state that are working on affordable housing challenges. So I'm very happy to be here and sharing about it with y'all today.
Well, that was I when I went to Chapel Hill, it was actually to talk to many of the members of the Our State, Our Home, and that's where I had just like so much. I loved seeing the all of the presentations then, and it was amazing. And so maybe we could jump into some of them now. So thank you so much, Jacob. Jess, why don't we start with you because you had such a I want to talk about your project. I think Sarah, you're going to share it on the screen so folks can see a little bit of what you created. And as Sarah's doing that, thank you all for jumping in the chat and telling us where you are from. Unsurprisingly, we have a lot of representation from North Carolina, so yay. And welcome everyone who is on our call today. And thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing some of Jess's work here. Jess, tell us a little bit about the work you did because you worked in wood, and I would love to know how did you land on this art form? How'd you get there? Tell us a little bit about the process, some of the maybe challenges of telling the story of housing affordability through this medium. Tell us a little bit about what you did.
Sure. I've been doing laser engraving at UNC as a makerspace. So I've been using that makerspace to do this laser engraving for about 2 years. So it is kind of my rather weird niche hobby and art form. So that's why I chose this for this POV challenge. I had a story to tell about the successes of affordable housing in Chapel Hill. I bought a home through an affordable housing program. And I just kind of want to detail, like people want to buy a home, like there's reasons why and it's very difficult, but, through, you know, policy and nonprofit work, it is possible to achieve.
I love that. Just, are you able to share a little bit more about the program and what kind of difference it made for you?
Yeah, so my husband was in the military and we moved back to the US in late 2018, in which we were living with my parents for about a year and I was commuting in to Chapel Hill about an hour each way, and the commute was absolutely killing me. So I considered quitting my job or moving out to Chapel Hill. And so we decided to move out to Chapel Hill, and the commute was much better, but the rent was very high. It's a college town. And each year that we lived there, the rent increased and increased to the point where we could no longer afford it. And so we had the choice of moving back in with my parents or finding a more affordable solution. And so we found the Community Home Trust. It's a nonprofit that works with the city of Chapel Hill. And whenever a developer develops housing, they either have to pay a large amount of money to the home trust or donate a few units or homes to the home trust. And then the home trust uses those homes to sell it to people within a certain income range. And there's a few stipulations where you have to live there. You can't rent it out, and when you're done living there, you sell it back to them. But you get all the money you put in back. So like it's a normal mortgage and all of that. You just can't sell it to like a different like individual buyers. So then the affordable homes stay within the program. And it's really great. I initially looking into this, I thought, this has to be a scam. What's the catch? I like was really like worried that it like wasn't even real. But yeah, it was real, and we bought a small condo, and it's really great. I like really love being a part of the program.
Just that's wonderful. And before we jump to Sarah and Kayla, can you talk a little bit about wha- what did you and your husband, you are younger, you're starting out. What, what has that meant that you've been able to almost start this process of maybe building wealth for yourselves or kind of your future? If you could talk a little bit about what the impact of that program has been for you and what the impact of being able to buy a home has meant for you.
Yeah, actually, when I first moved out to Japan, where my husband was stationed, I was homeless for 3 months. I was couch surfing, living in hotels. It was really scary and unstable time. Luckily, we had friends that, would put us up in a room for a while, and that worked out. But yeah, when I came back and I was renting, it felt really unstable. Like every year we would have to move or figure out how we could pay the rent. And so buying a home gave me this like such peace of mind. Like I can live here as long as I can. Like this is something that maybe my family can inherit. And it just brought me so much peace. Yeah.
I love that. And that idea of like home as peace, that stability. So that the program sounds like um just such a powerful thing, right, for folks in the community. So thank you, Jess, for sharing that. Kayla and Sada, I'd love to jump to both of you. So in addition to Jess's, while she calls it a niche art form, I loved her art form, and I loved both of your entry as well. That combination, you really kind of took the combination of music, poetry, and data. And maybe before you jump in, because we want to hear a little bit more about how you all kind of came together with that. Sarah, on our team, maybe you can share a little bit.
Hey, my name is Kayla,
Y me llamo Sara,
and together we are
First Generation.
First Year. medical students here at UNC, and this is our submission for the 2025 Point of View Challenge for Carolina Across 100.
Our point of view stems from combining our two art forms to bring understandings to the complexities of affordable housing issues.
I'll be sharing impactful words through a poem I wrote titled Unrooted.
And I'll provide musical accompaniment by playing the Oscar Peterson Trio's rendition of Georgia on My Mind. This piece is often thought to convey a feeling of yearning for home and the desire to be rooted in a secure place.
They say home is where the heart is. But what if that heart don't own no deed? What if the rent runs faster than the paycheck and the walls lean in real close? Listening to prayers whispered between final notices. What if home ain't a house, but a backseat warmed by body heat? A motel room where the bugs scatter before you can even close the door behind you. You see, some folks talk about housing like it's simple. Like affordability is just cutting back on coffee. Like stability is just a matter of willpower. Like they ain't never watched a family slide between the cracks. No forwarding address, just lost mail and lost time. Some folks say, just move. Like there's a welcome mat waiting somewhere else. Like roots don't break when they're ripped from the ground. Others think it's a choice. Like just work harder, save more, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But if that was true, why is a family of 4 spending 50% of their income on a place that barely keeps the rain out? Why are 1 in 5 Black households in North Carolina paying more than they can afford for shelter, while developers keep building fancy condos that only the wealthy can reach? And if you're Black, if you're Latinx, that eviction notice has a higher chance of reaching your door. Displacement in gentrifying neighborhoods is real. Studies show that Black families are displaced at twice the rate of their white counterparts. And even when they do get housing, it is often in neighborhoods with fewer resources, less access to opportunity, where grocery stores are too far, where the schools are underfunded, where crime rates climb because the system left them behind. They don't see it. They don't see the choice you didn't have to make. The one between paying for healthcare or paying for shelter. The one where you tell your kids,
we'll make it work,
and hope they don't ask why, because the answer feels like a secret you are not supposed to share. So what do I say? I say make them walk into a housing office and watch as the waiting list grows, while the prices keep pushing higher, pushing everyone further out of reach. Make them hear the voices of young children asking,
why can't we stay here? Why do we always have to move?
Make them walk through a mold-infested apartment and feel the weight of knowing that this is the best they can get. Make them hear the stories of single mothers who clock 12-hour shifts only to be turned down for housing because their credit score does not reflect their work ethic. Because the system demands they prove security before they've ever been given the chance to build it. Because affordable housing ain't just about affording to live. It is about being able to live at all. It's knowing the mailman's name, knowing which floorboard moans when you sneak in late at night. It's the smell of your neighbor's cooking floating through the hall, the way the sun hits your bedroom just right in the morning. It is not just home. It is stability. It is history. And if we don't fight for housing as a human right, we don't just lose homes. We lose lives, we lose futures, and we lose the very heart of what it means to have a place to call home.
Thank you so much for playing that. That was amazing. That's I feel like I'm like, okay, well, we're done here because y'all heard and saw all of this amazing work. Sarah and Kayla, tell us a little bit about this. Tell us a little bit about how you brought this together. Like, what inspired your approach?
Sure. So I'll start and then Sada, you can jump in. I think with our work, we really wanted people to feel the struggle that families face every day. And so we did that by portraying stories from the ground up instead of the top down. So real people, real numbers, and our own experiences. So for me, I grew up in rural North Carolina, and that really shaped how I view community and home and what that means when one of those are threatened. My family and friends also shared their stories, and their voices were featured on this work. And I think that was essential as well in capturing the full picture of what it's like to face housing insecurity. I also think the jazz really shaped this piece as well because it mirrors the tension, the improvising, and the resilience of families facing housing insecurity, as well as the poetic words follow the music in a way that's deliberate pauses and breaths to give the audience time to feel the wide range of emotions that I think work like this invokes, such as hope, frustration, fear, but I think importantly as well, we wanted to show that housing instability doesn't happen in isolation. It's tied to things like lack of health care, underfunded schools, and structural barriers that hit Black and Brown communities the hardest. So by sharing stories through music and poetry, we really wanted to give the audience a way to feel these realities, to experience them emotionally, and to also understand the human cost of what it's like to be unrooted. But at that same time, we wanted to spark something in our audience, the urge to speak up, to support initiatives such as the Housing Narrative Lab and NC Impact, and actually be a part of the change. Sada.
How's that, Kayla?
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Sarah.
I mean, I just echoing everything that Kayla said. And it was really kind of serendipitous that it came together because I hadn't heard about the POV challenge until Kayla brought it up. And I had been working on this piece since I started medical school, was like trying to reconnect with music, which has always been a really big part of my life. And so, it being about housing and this being this piece that also is just like nostalgic. And home for me is, and for many people, it's not really just like a place. It's a feeling. And I've always found it easier for myself to communicate with music. Um, and so it just ended up being like this really great collaboration because I think it kind of fed off each other a little bit with what Kayla wrote and the kind of cadence with the music. Um,
I love that. Thank you so much. And I'm curious for both of you how how your personal experiences, how your lived experiences impacted the story you told, how you told the story. I know, Kayla, you mentioned that you are from rural North Carolina. Sada, I don't know if you're from North Carolina or not originally, but did that play a role at all? Your experiences in how you were telling the story?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, but I am first generation, born in Miami, but to immigrant parents. And so home was always kind of a complicated thing, because it felt like when we would visit our family, because it was really all extended family still lived either in the Dominican Republic or in Colombia. Um, it was like we were going back home, but then Miami was home, and yeah, so the sense of like what is home and was just kind of always been a part of growing up and identity and like but then after I finished undergrad, I ended up moving up to North Carolina. I had some difficulties with housing and just like experienced firsthand a little bit, just trying to figure out. I didn't know where I would be staying from one week to the next. And, I was very thankful for the community that was able to support me during a really challenging part of life. Um, but then always felt like, okay, but I had music to kind of like reconnect to the sense of home and a sense of belonging somewhere. So then even starting in medical school, where it's like, okay, now I'm in Chapel Hill because I was in Winston-Salem before this, so totally new place, totally new space, totally new like home. Um, then using like music to kind of root me and feel grounded.
And to second what you said, Sada, I think a lot of my personal experience was portrayed throughout the work, so I won't be redundant in mentioning those stories. But I do want to emphasize that we shouldn't have to depend on the one-off luck of a person supporting someone to have housing. Shelter should be guaranteed for all people. Um, so.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Kayla. I'm gonna veer for one quick second. I'm curious, um, for all three of you, for Sarah and Kayla, you are both in medical school, and Jess as well as you're studying your PhD. I'm curious the role of housing in how you all are thinking of your work, how you all are thinking about being the medical practitioners that you will be, Jess, in the work that you are doing. Uh, does how you think about housing, what impact will that have on the work that you do as you move forward?
So I study mental health disorders, mostly the genetics of it, but I know that both environment and genetics play a role in someone developing a severe mental health disorder. So when I do my research, I think about the factors that contribute. And one of those factors is housing insecurity, as well as access to medical care, access to healthy foods and education. And so when I go forward with my research, I think about those factors and it plays a large role.
Housing is the foundation, right, for so much of our healthy lives.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Thank you,
think,
Jessica. Sarah,
yeah, sorry to jump in. I
please.
think because of the, like personal experiences and then also like seeing all of these lived stories, it's unfortunately like made me more keyed into things that a lot of people take for granted or just it's like this invisible struggle almost that's not really invisible that people are like scared to name and talk about so it's something that I would definitely carry with me in my career just making sure that I like am addressing those things and if I'm ever in a like position to bring more awareness and or you know connect to resources or something like that. It's such an integral part of health and wellness that like it's more than just the question like, do you feel safe at home? That we're kind of like being taught to ask these things to investigate. Um, but yeah, like to go beyond that and like actually um, do actionable things.
Yeah, I
Love that.
agree.
Thank you.
I think being a future physician, I hold a role that's uniquely equipped to address issues that all affect health, such as the social determinants of health and housing being one of those. And I like to almost think as a response to this question that housing is medicine. Like having a secure
Yes.
home
Yes.
is foundation for health and safety and dignity and being able to fight for the life that you deserve. And I think patients that do lack stable housing are more likely to face health issues such as chronic stress, disrupted sleep, and limited access to consistent medical care. So I think it's a huge consideration in my career.
Thank you, all of you. I really appreciate that because as you were talking, I really thought like you're starting this whole space for yourselves and your professional lives. And it felt like housing was so integral to how you all um will be working with all of the families or the people that you'll be working with. I wanted to go back to a little bit more of the stories that were told. Jacob, maybe you could jump in and tell us a little bit more about some of the other ways that students shared stories. We just heard two and saw two really great examples. And Jacob, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about some of the other ways that that students were really kind of jumping into this POV challenge.
Yeah, definitely. It was very exciting to see all the different types of submissions that came in. So the goal of the competition is to be really inclusive and diverse and creative in the different ways that data can be visualized and shared. And So it's really great that they came up with different options, but some people use things like a children's book to express their point of view. We had educational videos like where people were interviewing people around campus. We had podcasts, poems. Some folks really digged into the data and made some good story maps and websites. And then, of course, we had some submissions that used art or film or music, like some of the ones you saw today.
And I think we have one more that really kind of struck us as well. There were so many. There were a lot, but we were just highlighting a few. And I think my colleague Sarah is going to share. There was one that was a music video. Maybe Sarah, you can share a little bit of it, and Jacob, if you can talk a little bit about it after we see a little clip from it.
I work full time, but half my paycheck goes straight to my landlord. I thought college meant success. Add student loan debt to the list of things I can't afford. Want to move closer to work, but rent is higher near the city, so I bust an hour each way. Juggling two jobs, working nights, working weekends and holidays. 40 hours a week, and still all I can afford is a room with 3 roommates. Watching rent go up while my paychecks stay the same. I did everything right. A diploma, a job, why am I still drowning in rent? I want to save for the future, but right now I can barely afford the present.
This was a music video. I think the whole thing was maybe 3 minutes. Jacob, we were hoping the students that also did this project could join us, and they were unable to. So maybe Jacob, you could tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this was one of our winners for the competition this year, and it was 2 undergraduate students, and I think one of them was a creative arts major, and one might have been a theater major. So they were really playing to their strengths there. And I like that one a lot because you saw one clip there of one person's point of view that I think is like a young professional and the challenges they deal with housing. But then I think it goes through 4 different people, and one's like an aging adult. One is a person experiencing homelessness. So there's like a few different perspectives you see in the video, and then it brings it all together. And so I thought that was a really unique approach to not to show one perspective, but to show lots of them and how they connect in that project. So y'all will have to check that one out later.
Yes, for sure. And I think my colleagues will put some links in there. Yeah, that video was great because it was a student, it was a single mom, it was a senior, and then a young professional, which I thought was really interesting. And one of the things that really kind of struck me, that really stood out, was that all of you and your colleagues, the other students that also joined in the competition, you all use data in really interesting ways, right? I think for folks who are communicators, often we maybe shy away from using data in stories, or we often give people advice about be judicious in how you use your data. And I really applaud how all the students did that, right? And so, Jacob, I was just kind of curious, did you, as folks were thinking about submitting to this challenge, did you offer guidance to the students about this, or just anything there in terms of how they were going to use the data or any of the other information about housing, particularly because housing can be the story of housing, can be thought of as such a commodity or a line item on a budget, or right, any of the other kind of like data pieces, but students kind of wove that in a different way. And I was curious if you offered them any guidance or advice on how to do that.
Yeah, so the submission guidelines and everything for the competition are pretty broad. So the opportunities that they could pursue are pretty endless. The one requirement we had is that if they're using data, that it be publicly available. But we also know that data takes a lot of different forms, so it doesn't have to be numbers. It could be personal experiences or your creative expression or research that you're doing on your own or that somebody else has done, and really just wanted to leave it open for whatever was going to be most meaningful for the students to share. But we did pull together just a few like basic publicly available data sets to get folks started, but definitely encourage them to find their own. And to tap into the resources on campus. Like Jess was saying, we have this makerspace on campus where you can do woodworking and metalworking and 3D printing. And then we have music studios and art studios on campus. And so definitely encourage them to tap into those things. But it was pretty wide open with the opportunities.
I appreciate that, Jacob. I'm curious for all of you. So we know that there are groups, and you've highlighted some of them, certainly in the stories that you all told. But we know that there are groups that are that can be disproportionately impacted and are disproportionately impacted when it comes to housing, and young people are among those groups. There's something like 4 million young people between the ages of 18 to 26 who don't have a stable and steady home. And I'm curious about how, and this is a kind of an open question to all of you. I'm curious about how you all think about the unique perspectives that young people can bring in when they are telling their stories generally, but especially when telling the stories about housing. And I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on sort of the unique perspectives that young people can bring. And again, that's an open question to everyone.
Okay. I think I was a young person attempting to buy a home for the first time. And yeah, I had to figure out how to get a mortgage. What does that entail? How does that work? You have to have a good credit score. So as a young person, you may not have had a credit card or credit for very long, so you don't have a lot of time to build up a good credit score. And I had to shop around at a lot of different banks that are willing to give me even a relatively small mortgage based off of my income. Mostly because you have to work a certain number of years at the same job in order to qualify for a mortgage. And I'm young, so I've been traveling around working different jobs. So that really limited where I could get a mortgage at and how much they were willing to lend to me.
Thank you, Jess. Jacob, Kayla, Sarah? Sarah. I apologize, Sarah.
I can jump in. I think the different forms of art is just a great way to start. Like being able to express things that are maybe, difficult to in the data way. Like, and I think Kayla had mentioned it earlier, where it's like we're telling it from these very specific perspectives. We're building it from the ground up. And young people is a really big category, right? And we all um we all interact with media very differently. But I think if there's a story to be told, finding a way to tell that story, be it like through music or through poetry or through art, and like having the opportunity to, play around with those things. And maybe it's not going to be great the first time, but then you get a little closer to, okay, I have an idea what my story is, and then other people resonate with that, and then we can kind of have this like dialogue. So I something like this POV challenge I think was great because it wasn't something I had, had a chance to explore within the art, and being given that opportunity, I think just like really deepened the experience with it.
To your point, I think accessibility and ownership are key in getting young people engaged. Like for me, one of the biggest reasons I got involved in this project is because it was literally a banner at the top of my Canvas page that I check every single day. So it immediately caught my eye, and it also felt like something that I could actually do. I could take my own time with it. I could explore ideas that mattered to me and ultimately make something that felt meaningful. So when reflecting on your question, I think we need to realize that like you can't just send emails or just posts on boards where people may or may not see it. You have to go into the spaces where young people already are and make it easy for them to engage. And have room to make decisions and try things their own way and actually see the impact of what they're doing. Because I think way too often opportunities come across, but there's all of this bureaucracy and strict guidelines that weed people out before they even can get started. So I think when some of those barriers get removed to make the work more flexible and visible, young people can take ownership of that, and it pushes conversations forward and motivates us to be engaged in projects like these.
Kayla, you just like anticipated my next question. I thank you so much. So for those folks that are on our call today and are watching the webinar, Kayla just gave you a nice little framework and a great blueprint for what it looks like, right? For organizations, for nonprofits that are working on housing issues to bring in the voices of younger people. I mean, the data again is pretty clear about how young people are impacted and influenced, and Jess and Kayla and Sada are talking a lot about that right now. And so, Kayla, I really appreciated that kind of outline for organizations, because organizations can get kind of caught up in, or government, right? Like it has to be this way and you have to say it this way and you have to do this thing. But the idea of um, really kind of meeting people in a place where they're going to be, and reaching them in a way where it's their authentic selves are going to show up, I think is a really critical piece. And I was curious if Sada or Jacob, Jess, if you had any other feedback around that, right? As organizations that are working on housing issues, as or nonprofits that are working on these issues, government entities, and I think we're all pretty clear that stories are really important, right? And that people, in order for people to kind of understand the challenges and the vision for housing as a basic need, housing as a human right. If you all have any additional thoughts or insight into, these are some other ways that we should be bringing perspectives and voices of young people into the conversation.
I'll just say that I think it was really helpful for what we're doing because, like I mentioned earlier, we're working with people around the state who are doing housing stuff all day long, every day, and they really get wrapped up in it, I think, and really are looking at the numbers and the day to day, and don't take a minute to always step back and think about the big picture, the different ways that they could talk about it or share about it. And students uh, just they feel more passionate a lot of times and or have that creativity and can bring up things that other folks would have never thought about, even when they're working in it every day. Just having that outside perspective. Or one of my favorite parts was that there's not like a housing major in college, so it's not like we're tapping into a specific department or anything to share this opportunity with students. It's really with people across the whole university. And so one of my favorite things was seeing like medical students or PhD students and all different types of topics that in theory you wouldn't think have anything to do with housing, but it really does, and it's all interconnected, and that perspective is really helpful. So not just young people that you would expect to be in the housing world, but young people that are bringing that opposite perspective.
I love that. Thank you, Jacob. Sada or Jess, would you like to add anything else on that? Sada, I feel like you're like, start a music program.
Always, yeah. Yeah, I think just echoing what Kayla said very poetically, and Jacob as well. Um, I'm not a big like ideas person, but I think yeah, just the opportunity to kind of have this like little sandbox of this is something that everyone can relate to, like everyone has an experience like, and although they can all be different, but yeah, just being given that kind of chance. And like Kayla mentioned, just um the like accessibility, like knowing it was happening. Like I don't check my Canvas, I guess, at the top all the time. But so I didn't know about it until Kayla mentioned it, and I'm really thankful that she did because yeah, just being able to engage in this way. Um, but yeah, would love to see more of this, kind of like encouraging students to be creative and speak in ways that are like more true to them. And yeah, just love this and would love more of it.
I'm curious, thinking about how I'm going to just switch gears for a minute to think about audiences, right? I mean, these days, people of any generation, right? Folks just have, this much attention span. There's just kind of a lot coming at us all the time. A lot of folks are getting their news through social media and content creators, right? And we know certainly that influencers and content creators through TikTok and Instagram and some of these places are definitely a place where a lot of younger folks are getting their information. I was curious as you all were putting together your stories and your submissions, were you thinking about audience at all, or who you saw as your audiences for your stories, and how did that maybe shape what you created?
Yeah, I think we all were thinking about who may be viewing this. For me personally, I could read through a lot of data and put a lot of information underneath the images, but I chose to keep it like within a sentence or two, and have a QR code for people who wanted to read more. So I think keeping it simple and just giving direct information, what people need to know, and then giving a resource so people can learn more is it's an effective way to like get attention, get awareness, and then provide a way just to learn. But yeah, I think social media is a very important way to learn about resources. And I actually saw the Community Home Trust on an Instagram post. So, nonprofits and things are advertising or sharing their information on social media. And I think that's very important.
Love that. Thank you, Jess.
I agree. Sada and I definitely thought a lot about who would be experiencing our work because I think today people get their information in bite-sized, quick pieces through social media. So we wanted our submission to meet them where they are, because it's not just like for policymakers or researchers, it's for young people, neighbors, and honestly anyone that might connect personally to housing struggles. Um, so we wanted to blend like our music and poetry to grab that attention quickly, but also allow emotions to continue to linger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Kayla. Sarah, go ahead.
Oh,
Sarah, I keep doing that. I'm
no,
so
it's
sorry.
all good. It's all good.
Sarah.
It's all good. Yeah, to Kayla's point, our project did see like a few iterations where we were trying to figure out like what would work well. And even picking the piece, because I was between the Georgia on My Mind or something else. And then, yeah, it was just very collaborative. So it felt like, okay, this is also telling a story, and Kayla's spoken word really just like brought it together. And so we had like a few versions of it. I think ultimately landed on this one. Um, that, yeah, I think Kayla just like punctuated really well all the things that I sometimes struggle to find words for. Um, but yeah, audience was definitely a big part of our conversations about what this would sound like and what we wanted kind of to come across.
That's great. Thank you, Sarah. And I'm curious, Jacob, as you all were on the side of the folks that were putting together the challenge, how did you envision communities using them, or how did you all envision the audiences at some point?
Yeah, so the main audiences that actually are homes teams through the program that we're doing with Carolina Cross 100. And so we shared it at a forum a few months ago whenever you were there, and so teams got to explore it then. We're also going to put them on display again this coming March when we have our statewide summit, and so we'll have a much more public audience then in person. But these are all available on our website for folks to explore, for folks to use. So I've had some people reach out and say, can I use this music video to like post on my website and share with like if I'm a local nonprofit and sharing with the community about like really what's the root of this work that we're doing, and in a much more digestible way than a lot of other times that you see it. Um, so yeah, they can use these resources as they are to, raise awareness and spread information, but also as a way to spark new ideas or innovation or inspiration. So taking what they see in these projects and making their own as well.
I love that. Thank you, Jacob. I actually want to use because we're now coming towards the tail end, so I want to be able to make sure that we ask some of the questions that folks have put in the chat. And if you have specific questions about the art, the process, anything that you would like to make sure that we ask Sarah and Kayla and Jacob and Jess, please add them on in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. I did see one from Lisa Marshall who says, I'm working with youth in high school. How do I utilize the college students how do I bring in college students, excuse me, to amplify the voices of high school and lower grade schools suffering from housing insecurities? So it looks like Lisa's really asking about how college students can work with younger students in high school and maybe the lower grades to be able to tell their stories about housing insecurities. Curious how you all think. What role, how would you all be able to work with or would want to work with young people, even younger in high school and elementary aged students, so that they can shape and tell their stories too?
I love working with younger kids. I still consider myself fairly young, but like high school and middle school, etc., they all have my heart. And I love mentorship as well. And so I think a suggestion I would have in your question is maybe taking advantage of already established mentorship programs that are affiliated with universities and high schools. Um, Typically, like organizations, like I run an organization called Mentor X, which is just here on campus, but I know that there's a lot of other mentor organizations where they partner with high school students already. So maybe taking advantage of that relationship in order to spark these kinds of conversations and sort of gamifying civic engagement by making it like interactive and immediate and allowing young people to kind of map out their own voice and story and doing that through the mentorship relationship that's already established.
Right. So bringing students in as mentors, I love that. Sarah and Jessica, Jacob?
I do love that mentorship model. I have also had really wonderful experiences with it. I'm biased on the musical side, but I think it works really well because when I worked as a mentor, I was college age and I'd be going to middle school, and of course we are talking about music, but eventually, of course, we get to other topics too, and that just like feeling like it's a peer, feeling like it's someone that they can relate to, and also being like it's okay if you don't know, it's okay if we're just figuring this out. Like a lot of the metaphor of practice, right? And like trying things, and if it doesn't work, that's okay. Now you know that that doesn't work, and you can try something else. But it being within the context of like creativity, or we're making something, we're producing something. So in sports, I'm sure there's like mentorship as well, but just in the arts in particular, like having a space where creativity and like stepping outside of the box is really encouraged. Um, Gives them a chance to like find their voice. So I don't know how that would look like specifically for, let's talk about um, very specific issues, but I think being engaged and making spaces where or giving for at least in Miami, a lot of the mentorship I did was in underserved middle schools and high schools. And so it was like we were bringing in instruments, and we were really their teachers. And so, doing a little bit of math, doing a little bit of reading, doing a little bit of all of this with music. So I'm biased. I'll say we need more arts, because that gives that
We
just is
do.
space. But yeah, I think that's where my thought was going.
Oh, well, thank you, Sarah.
And I'll just echo that same thing with the arts. I think it's so great, and the arts is like such a universal language, so young people and old people, like everyone can relate to it, and everyone can collaborate on it. Like I would argue that like Sarah and Kayla, neither of you probably could have pulled it off like alone, but you each brought your own artistic expertise and talent, and then put it together, and so it's collaborative and it's widely understandable and very moving.
Thank you, Jacob. Jess, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree about the mentorship aspect. I do similar things with science outreach in rural communities. I think it might also be really great to have some sort of like financial literacy programs in schools, teaching them about how to find affordable housing, how to save your money, how to spend it efficiently, as well as just, how to get a mortgage and things like that. Like those aren't things that we learn in school. Usually they're taught by family members, and if they don't know, then you can't pass down that knowledge. So yeah, I think mentorship is probably the foremost one, but also early education and financial literacy.
Well, thank you. There are a lot of questions about links to all of your work, and we will be sharing all of the links in the chat as well. And I saw that someone also had asked a question about, they have lots of questions about the logistics of the POV challenge. So maybe, Jacob, you might want to put your email in the chat so that if folks have real specific questions. But they also were asking, someone was asking specifically about how you spread the word about a competition like this, or an effort like this that really wants to bring in the voices of young people. And in this case, the person was asking if the advertising and the spreading of the word that you all do, if it's really specific and localized to the UNC community, or are you kind of, how are y'all bringing this in? And I know, Kayla, you said you kept seeing it pop up on one of your screens, right?
Yeah, so Canvas is like the platform that we use for all of our courses. So it's something that all students interact with multiple times a day. And it was actually like a banner at the top. And I usually don't see a banner there. So I'm like, oh, what is this? Versus like checking through thousands of emails or like potentially passing by a board. I just think it was a lot more like in my view. If that makes sense.
That's so great to hear. Yeah, because students are hard to reach, like especially at a big university. Like it's hard to get the word out about something like this. So I'm glad that that is a good tactic that we tried. And I'll also mention we put in ads for the Daily Tar Heel, which is the local newspaper, student newspaper in Chapel Hill, and very popular with students. So that was another avenue we used. We also found LinkedIn is not good for reaching students. It's good for reaching a lot of our audiences, but Instagram was definitely like the most useful whenever we were trying to reach students.
Right.
Yeah, so it's really about finding them where they are, but it's hard. It's hard to do. And because we want people from all across the university, we tap into all the different departments, usually have like a listserv or something like that that they communicate with their students. So that's been another good way that we reach out. But yeah, it's all been central to UNC so far, because Carolina Cross 100 is like a university initiative. But I could certainly see this same platform or logistics or method of doing something like this could definitely work in a lot of different places.
I appreciate that. It seems like it, right? And I really appreciate that you lifted up, you used Instagram, but also targeting, right? As you were using some of the social media platforms. Well, we are at time. So I just want to say thank you so much to all of you for joining us today, Kayla and Sarah and Jess, and Jacob, and all of you that joined us for this hour. We're going to link to the POV challenge and other resources that we've mentioned. They're going to be in the chat, and we want to thank you all so much for joining us today, and be on the lookout for some of our next webinars that'll be coming up. Thank you, everyone. Happy Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.